So hello again. Today we're going to take a look at something entirely different. We are actually in the home laboratory where a lot of cool things happen. We actually happen to be in the speaker room right now. And it's a kind of busy place. If you look around here, there's several things right here going on. But what we're going to focus on is I have a 59 model Jensen P10Q that I have had in my stash for some time. It was rescued from a certain demise. It was actually on its way to a dump. I managed to salvage this. It had had a pretty rough time by its previous owner. He had tried to solder stuff on it, and you can see here where he actually heated everything up so bad he burnt the terminals off of it. It's a bit rusty. But these things are almost like gold at this point. I was actually checking eBay and a few things a day to see what these things are going for, and it's ridiculous. I've been saving this one for a project, and usually if you save something long enough, a need for it shows up, and you will see what I'm going to do later. At this point, I've cleaned this frame up really well. It's all been cleaned up. It's ready for a recone. What I have done is cleaned up the rust as much as possible. I guess this guy must have used a torch to solder these with. It looks like he probably used acid core solder. So I cleaned up the frame as much as I could. Sometimes I'll actually use a rust inhibitor. In this case, I tried to leave it as original as possible. I did spray a coat of clear acrylic on it to kind of stop it from degrading any farther. What I'm going to do is use these terminals and these shoulder washers to put new terminals on it. It won't be totally original, but it's going to be pretty close. Thing here is to save it, and that's what we're going to do. So if you question why somebody would go through this much trouble, well, I have my reasons. I've got a plan. Like I say, you will see it all later. So I'm going to move on with this. I will catch up with you in a bit. Well, here we are at the next stage of our vintage Jensen restoration. I made the mistake of mentioning that it was a 59 model. It is actually a 61. For some reason I convinced myself it was a 59. We look at what we did with the terminals. That's all worked out really well. The pop rivets that I used will make a nice little tunnel for the leads. A lot like the eyelets that they used originally. You can see the shoulder washers on the inside. I already have the voice coil in and shimmed up. I'm using paper voice coil forms like the originals. We're searching for a close to as original as possible rebuild. I'm using 3 pieces of shim stock. Some videos have mentioned using rolled up paper. This is more critical than that. I actually am using 2 pieces of 4/1000 thick speaker shim stock and 1 piece of 3/1000 thick. It's a whole lot more accurate. That's exactly what we need. Again, for the fit on the spider and voice coil, it should be very tight. We are not grinding anything out or anything like that. They fit snugly. You can see how tight it actually fits. There shouldn't be any room for any glue oozing anywhere. You want to use as little glue as possible. Less glue, less weight. The cone we are using is from my stash. I have a few original Jensen cones that we're using. These things are hard to come by. I've been a reconer since mid-70s, so I have a lot of this old stuff laying around. I've tried to take really good care of to preserve, to have on hand when I need it. To quote a very influential teacher, trying to find new stuff that actually fits properly is like trying to get blood out of a turnip. So there you go, Mr. Weiss, that was for you. So we have everything all fitted. We're ready to go here. We're going to drop the cone in and all that. I already have the other one done. I tried to do 2 speakers at once at least because you have to mix epoxy. So I have another Jensen here that we're going to do. It's actually a C.P.R. So to say, I have all this stuff ready here and ready to go. We're going to be using high temperature epoxy made for speaker use. It's the same thing you use to hold JBLs and so on together with. It holds up a whole lot better than anything else. I use it religiously on all my speaker rebuilds, including the little speakers that I manufacture. So there we go. I'm going to get this little guy glued up, and we will catch up later. Well, here we are. Get you caught up on our progress that we've made. We actually have everything glued together. We have the gaskets on. If you look over here, here's the ceramic Q. You can see I use clothespins to actually hold the gaskets in place till they dry. Over here on this little fella, you can see I've added a bit of edge treatment here. This is actually one of my own formulations. I took the original speaker damping surround material and I tweaked it several years ago for my own use on my little speakers. What we want it to do is actually soak into the fibers of the paper, not lay on top, and rubberize the edge of the cone without adding a lot of weight or a lot of mass to it. As I formulated this years ago to use back here on these little guys, and you can see it's a very light edge treatment. It does the job without slowing anything down or muting the speaker any. So we've added enough of that to this cone to try to keep it pliable, and so it'll last a few years. You can see my voice coil glue joint. We've got a nice, neat, tidy little glue joint here. Neatness counts in these. Like I say, it looks a lot bigger than it actually is. We want the glue joints to be sturdy but not globbed on heavy. Something else you'll notice right here is with these vintage cones, we actually have little solder eyelets that you don't have these days. You have to be really careful with these to make sure you don't char the cone while you're soldering things up. Which brings up another point. In another video I saw a gentleman actually poking a hole through the cone with the soldering iron for his leads. You don't want to compromise the strength around this lead at all. You want it pretty strong. It's going to be a lot of vibration and stress there over the years. So we'll get on the wiring of this up, and I'll show you our finished result later. So at this point we have our voice coil leads all wired up, glued down, both speakers. Go wait for those to dry. That'll probably be overnight. Let's take a look at our terminals. These actually come out looking really quite original once it's done. Love it when playing comes together. Something else I wanted to mention is this is original assembly out of the C10Q. If you look close here, you can actually see if I can get a good look at this for you. You can see the loose windings right here. those rattled like a bad tube. So it took a little while to find this in the amp. Problem solved. Won't be happening with that again. So we will carry on. So I have changed locations on you. We're now back at the main shop. This speaker is finished. It's ready to go in its rightful place. I did have to use a different dust cover, as it turns out the voice coil that I used was just a slightly bit taller than the original coil, so the original dust cover would have rattled on it, so I had to use a different dust cover. Other than that, it's paper dust cover, it'll be okay. So this gets us on to the next point of why I did all this. Let's move this, and here we go. One of our very good customers brought in a 59 Vibrolux. This amp is from May of '59. We're getting ready to do a rebuild on it. Spin it around here. Sorry, had to have both hands. And here is why we need the speaker. We have an Altec that has no place in this amplifier. We're going to do a rebuild on the amp, replace the speaker. So, there. You're up to point now. Well, here we are, all finished up. We've got some new capacitors in the amplifier, some new plate load resistors, a new power cord, a new set of output tubes, preamp tube, and what makes it look really cool is we have an original speaker. So, there we go. This is what this should actually look like. So, I'm finished up with this one. Hope you enjoyed this. Just a funny little shop story. So till next time, take care, be well. Best you all. Later.